Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 394. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. If you keep trying to ignore us, I'll go grab the claw of Horus. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you know.
How's it going, eh?
And you have two hands to do that, so it'll be a little easier for you. On this episode, we are going to be talking about Secret Origins. We're going to talk about Justice League United, and we're also talking about All-Star Western. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the DCinfinite.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, we have a whole bunch of brand new stuff that they've got on special. They have this really cool Unwritten. It's Tommy Taylor and the Ship That Sank Twice trade paperback. I'm a big fan of Unwritten, and it's 50% off, only $7.49. The cool part, I'm liking that they're doing this more than more. What they're doing is when they do a special on DCBService.com, they do a similar special over at InStockTrades.com. So they've got, for those of you who've never been reading Unwritten before, which is an amazing read, they have all of the trade paperbacks and hardcovers for Unwritten at 45% off at InStockTrades.com. So they bump up the discount. I'm a fan of when they use both of their sites, and I wanted to shout this one out because the Tommy Taylor series, Unwritten, is just incredibly cool. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, for fans of things, I don't want to say Harry Potter, for fans of fantasy literature, like Harry Potter and things like that, Tommy Taylor is what happens if that character that the story was based on is a real living person. And what if there are elements from that story that were taken from reality? What happens when magic meets reality, when those worlds blend? And some of the things that you thought were just a tale being told are actually part of your real background story. Oversimplifying what is the wonderful world of Unwritten, I'm a big fan of this. It's a Vertigo series. It's really awesome. If you haven't read it, check out DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com and get that at a discount and check it out. It's one that I give the highest recommendation to. It's just a favorite series of mine. So I wanted to shout out Unwritten. And I want to thank DCBService.com for being our pre-order source and InStockTrades.com for being the place that you go to get great discounts on hardcovers and trade paperbacks. They're just wonderful services and great sponsors of our shows. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotlines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
You know, it's funny, Jim. I'll share this on air. This week, I get stuff at conventions all the time, commissions. Usually I get them in my book. I've got, a book that I would give to artists, and they do the commission in there, and then I've been collecting them. So I've got a sketchbook, I take with me. Well, I've had one from Gene Ha that he did. I didn't have my book with me, and he did it on paper. It was like a cardstock paper. It was Starman, Jack Knight's Starman. I love it. I'm a big Gene Ha fan. And because it's not in a book, I'm like, well, I want to get this framed. Well, besides that, I have they had a 6-issue cover series where each of the issues connected, and it was all the Starmen throughout the DC history. So I ended up grabbing that poster. But then my real score, that where the story is leading, I also got a poster. It was that Crisis on Infinite Earths poster. When they reissued it in like the Absolute, they did that cute, cool wraparound cover. It's Alex Ross.
Oh, nice.
And it's got, or no, it's not Alex, I'm sorry, what am I talking about? Alex Ross. It's George Perez, duh. Why would it be Alex Ross? But it's this George Perez wraparound cover. So I ended up getting that off of eBay. Now, this is the second time I've gotten this poster. I got it the first time years ago when it first was originally issued. Tried to get it framed. Well, the framing company ruined it. And they paid me back and all that, which is all well and fine. But it's one of those things where, like, it wasn't about getting paid back. I'm like, I wish you could have found the poster and framed it. So I went this week to get these framed because I want the Crisis poster on my wall in my office. I'm redoing my office this summer where I record and stuff. And I'm like, I've always wanted this poster hanging up, which is really funny that I screwed up on the artist because of the fact that I've wanted this for so long. But there was 3 things I wanted. I wanted that. I wanted the Starman cover poster. And this commission that I got from Gene Ha, I wanted them all framed. So I finally went and got that done. So I'm really excited because I took to work today. The poster has a guide, that comes along with it. It's one of those. So I got that laminated at work today. And, just so I can have it by the framed art, so I can look at it and reference what characters. There's really more for the other people who might see it, not me. But it's nice to have that thing kind of preserved. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like an exciting week for me because this was something that I've wanted to do for some time. It got me to thinking though, because I've been doing this a lot this year. I've been taking a lot more of an active interest in getting things to display in my office, like posters and statues and little things like that, just because I want this room looking more comic booky than it already is with the various tchotchkes that I've gotten here. But do you have a comic book room that you're creating or a theme or something like that? Because I was thinking about you in your house. Past couple of years, you've recently gotten your own home. That it's really hard when you just start moving in because you're getting a lot of the necessities. But do you have a room that's like your man cave or whatever?
Well, I have a house that is my man cave.
Right, so it's a little bit of a different experience. Yeah.
I don't have a single room that's mine because I'm it. This is my house. I'm decorating it the way I want to. Now, I haven't started really decorating it, as the various family members who've been to my house will attest to. I have bare walls, and that were painted before I moved in. When they were selling the house, they did a fresh coat of paint, so I was like, that's good enough, even though I really need to repaint. And I've got a bunch of stuff that needs to get framed and put on the walls. But the plan in my head that I have is my computer room, which is also my comic room, which is I call the vault, because it's got all my drawer boxes up against the one wall. I plan on framing and mounting the various pictures, and there's a couple comic books that I've gotten signed that I want to frame and put those up on the wall. That's where the majority of this stuff's going to go. What's most people would call a living room, I'm turning into a library. I'm going to turn it into a reading room. So I'm going to have on the one wall a giant bookcase with my the various trades and the hardcovers, my infinite, my absolutes, etc. And there I'm going to put some more. The more artwork. I've got the Jamal Igle, that I got, the wonderful of Nightwing beating up Hawkman, and a couple other stuff that I picked up throughout the years.
I think it's great that you put up fantasy artwork.
Well, I haven't done it yet. This is the plan.
Right.
I've got different spots that I want to put these different things. So I've already, like, you got me that one Superman statue that's already downstairs because I've got a roll top desk down there that I've got one of my, I collect eagles. So I've got this nice, stainless steel eagle that looks really cool. Well, right next to it is Superman set up on that desk. So it's a process, 2 years going that it's slowly happening, but it's slowly happening. I got the grand plan in my head that, I keep saying, oh yeah, this summer I'm going to do it. Then it goes, this fall I'll do it. This winter I'll do it. And nothing's happened. I got to physically start doing this stuff.
Well, the posters, the one poster and the commission I've had forever. I mean, this is multiple years that I've had it there, and I got it with the intention I'm going to eventually get it framed. And life just gets in the way, so I've never gotten around to doing that. And I've got other posters in my office framed, and I've wanted to get these because, I want to hang more signed comics and different things like that. I get frames for those and put them up. But I wanted to get, because these are large, especially that Crisis one, I wanted to get those framed so that way I can kind of put everything around it. I was thinking of re-wallpapering this room, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to gradually just hang up cool things forget about the wallpaper and just kind of enjoy that part of it. Because I do have to have a man cave. I am under no doubt in my mind that this house is actually a wife cave. I have maybe like a man tunnel or something like that, which is fine. I'm very happy with it. But that's really the reality. Except, I don't think you probably wouldn't see it because you're not on Facebook. My wife got me the absolute coolest thing for our kitchen. And I was sitting here like, wait, what? You got this for the kitchen? She goes to this store called Francesca's that's like nearby, and she went and got herself this really nice dress. It looks cute and everything and neat. She came back and told me that they had this Batman sign. So I'm like, was it cool? And she goes, yeah. And I go, she goes, I was going to get it, but then she told me the cost. She's like, it was like $40. And so it was cool. And she goes, yeah. And I said, is it something I would have seen before? And she said, I don't think so. She said, she said, I liked it. I thought it was neat. Well, I said, like, let's get it. And I forgot about it. She came home with it the one day, and she's like, oh, I got this for the kitchen. And I didn't see what the sign was. So you flip it over. It's this wood sign, because our kitchen's kind of rustic. In this wood sign, really nice, it says, always be yourself unless you can be Batman. Then always be Batman. You know, it's or then you should be Batman. I'm paraphrasing it poorly, but it was one of those things. Like I'd seen that phrase on Facebook before. I'd never seen it like in an actual sign. I'm like, where do you want to put this? I figured I was gonna put it in my office or something like that. And she's like, no, put it in the kitchen. Look, it goes with everything. I'm like, this is like the coolest day ever. I've got something in the kitchen that actually represents me for a change.
All right.
And she went and did this independently on her own with the intention of putting it there. So it was really cool. So it was kind of a nice way to start off summer. So I'm kind of vicariously living through you by the fact that I can have something outside of my man cave that has Batman on it. It's neat.
Well, that's neat.
I want to talk about All-Star Western. This is we were talking about books that we haven't talked about in a while. This is a book we've talked about this on the show for years. And I remember pushing you way back when to start reading some Jonah Hex because I'm like, knowing you like I do, the storytelling style and the kind of gritty's not even the right word. It was gritty, I mean, but like the kind of redemption stories, that's probably a better way to put it, that are in here. I'm like, this is stuff that would be right up Jim's alley. And the creative team is Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, Staz Johnson on art, Michael Atay on colors, Rob Lay letters, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez with Guy Major on the cover, Brian Cunningham, group editor, and Harvey Richards is the editor. I'm really glad that we're having an opportunity to talk about this book because I just adore this.
Oh, God, yeah. I laugh because you and my brother Bill were both saying, dude, you should read Jonah Hex. It's awesome. You should read Jonah Hex. And once I really started getting into it, that was it. I'm all in on Hex. And this was the book that really got me also heavy into Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti because I really saw, okay, this is an amazing team. They're on that list of creators where if I see their name on it, even if I know absolutely nothing about the character, or if I'm like, I don't know about that so much about a book about them, if I see their name on it, I'm picking it up. I'm giving it a read. Just because there's stuff that you talk about, just the way they tell the story, the way they craft it, and they pull you through the page. They're one of the ones that I really like when it's the page flip, where I'm looking one thing and I flip the page and bam, I'm hit with something else. A lot of times I get that from them, or they'll do I call them bleed overs, but I don't know what the technical term. It's where you have one character saying one word, and then on the next page somebody else is saying, is continuing the sentence, but it's a different way. It's a different type of they're using that same word, but it's a different person, different scenario. And I love whenever they do that because again, they do it with the page turn, they do it with one to the other, and it's just I like that style.
What do you think about Hex without the scar?
That was a weird thing for me. I gotta say that when I first started reading Hex, that was something that annoyed me, was the scar. I was like, dude, just snip the one little bit that's keeping your mouth closed and you can open your mouth fully. And I didn't really get the whole, okay, he's got to have the bad, the cool scar and the face scar. Oh, look at Hex. And I wasn't so heavy into it. Then I got so used to it and I got so comfortable with it and I got so where it became part of it. When they got rid of it, when they got rid of it, I was like, wait, this can't be Hex now. What's going on here? It was odd.
Yeah. And I love it that it's story driven though. He got traveling through time with Booster Gold, came to modern day. and was traveling. He was traveling with the Arkhams in the past, but then in present day, he actually financially had some money waiting for him because of the fact that he had made an investment back in the day with the Wayne family. So that encountered Batman and all that, but he got hurt in present day, and due to that, he had to get some surgery. Well, modern day surgery, they can correct his face. So they did. And set him back. That was what a great journey that was, because he went back through time. He took the girl he was seeing with him, and she didn't last very long.
Did you see? Because I completely saw that coming, and as I'm reading that issue with even Booster's like, "Hey, you sure you want to go back?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going back." And he's like, and even Hex was like, "Dude, what are you doing? This is not a smart move." But I'm reading, going, "Don't do it. Just stay present day time. Find what I would have done if I was her. I would have said, okay, Jonah, point out where all your hidden gold is. If you don't use it in your time, I'll use it in mine." And let her, and I would have lived lap of luxury present day if I was her. There's no way I would have gone back in time. Just one, because Hex, death and destruction follows the man. But two, the past, we glorify it in movies, but living in the Old West absolutely was terrible. By comparison to present day, there is no way I would go back to the period where it's no running water, no electricity, no modern. I would never even remotely go back in time to that period.
I love that was a big part of it when she came back. Yeah. Like she had to deal with that. I like that was everything you're saying is exactly what she had to deal with. Jonah had to deal with the fact, first of all, he's going back to where he wanted to be because he so felt like, that nothing was right in modern day. It couldn't be more a fish out of water. But when he gets back into the past, he has to meet up with Tallulah, which that I so wanted to see. Has to convince Tallulah he's not his own brother. He's actually who he's saying he is. He's Jonah Hex. Which in the past, the concept of plastic surgery was it's not even fair to say alien. It's unfathomable. I mean, I don't even know if they would have fiction that would have such a thing in there. Yeah,
and the thing I loved about this whole process that we've gone through with Jonah is, you think about it, he started off in Gotham with Arkham, which was, kind of a fish out of water. And then he went into the future. Again, another just completely thrown, a loop. And now he's back where he belongs. He's back in the West. He's back in the plains. He's back, but he's coming back, and the first people he run into, he's like, "Hey, my brothers." And they're like, "You're not Jonah Hex. You don't have the scar on your face." And that gets him in a fight. And then he's in town where they're like, "Hey, you're not Jonah Hex. You don't have a scar on your face." But it kind of saves him from the one sheriff who's got a wanted poster for Jonah Hex. So it's this scar not having it causing problems and not having it, kind of helped him, and then not having it kind of threw things off between him and Tallulah. And it's kind of neat just how, even though he's back where he belongs, he's back where he's comfortable, his life is still turned upside down. And Jonah's got to deal with it, and he's going to deal with it in his own Jonah Hex way.
Well, can we just jump to that? Because you kind of alluded to this. The issue ends up with this. Jonah has to chase the fake Jonah Hex that's running around with a scar, because that's not him. So who is that? And why on earth? You must really be assuming that Jonah Hex is gone.
Or I'm taking it that it's somebody from Jonah Hex's past that really he's doing this to draw Jonah out. And I'm thinking it's, somebody from, because with his whole origin where he was raised by, the Apache and all, it's someone from that nation, it's someone from that group because he had a couple people that he was close with, who was like brothers with, and then like, no, you turned on us, and he had that whole negative side that everything happened, where he got his scar. So I'm assuming that's who it is, and they're doing this to draw Jonah out because the real Jonah Hex has been gone for a while. So this is the way to bring him out of hiding, so to speak, and not knowing that it wasn't really in hiding. He was in Gotham, and he was in the future, and so I'm thinking that's the path we're going to go with this.
Yeah, I'm really getting worried about it with Jonah Hex because I heard that the book's canceled now.
What?
It's one of the ones, they're canceling Batwing, they're canceling Birds of Prey. All-Star Western is another one that's going to be canceled.
Oh, man, I didn't hear Birds of Prey, and I didn't hear All-Star Western. I was like, dang it.
Except, the only thing I can't help but wonder is, we've got that Future's End, like, these are the, like, they cancel in August. Then September is Future's End. So I wonder if we're going to get a replacement book. I know they're doing a war book coming up as well. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the replacement for this. I hope not. And I want the war book that they're doing. So that's not... I'm all for more Grand Palmiotti, so yay. But I don't want it to be in place of All-Star Western. I want it to be in addition to.
Yeah. Oh, man, I didn't know they were... I'm bumming.
I'm hoping, though, that... the timing with it being when that Future's End, clicks into play,
right?
That maybe we'll see something afterwards.
Hopefully, because well, and you think about it, even if he goes away, Hex always has a way of coming back. Because I think it's you kind of go just general readers and just general entertainment with the Western genre. It goes cyclical. There's cycles and there's periods where people are like, yeah, these are some neat stories, and then I'm not so much into it. So I'm thinking, even if this is the end of Jonah Hex, it's not the end. He's going to come back in another format, and I'm hoping he comes back with Graham Palmiotti on the creative team, because they just really write a wonderful Western story.
See, I don't want it to end at all. And I'm not saying you do.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying, like, this kind of cyclical thing, the cycle's now. I'm into this now. So the idea that I've only got a few more issues of this, I'm hoping that I'm right, that maybe they'll try to relaunch it, in October. Being that they're going to have that Future's End month in September, we'll get a relaunch, of some version of it. Because when you see the interplay between him and Tallulah at the beginning of this issue, what a great sequence. I love Buddy Cop. We've talked about it on the show many times related to just a variety of different characters really enjoy. Catman, Deadshot. There was that really cool miniseries that came out of Wildstorm that, remember, we both liked it. I forget, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now, but that was very Buddy Cop. There's certain relationships that play off that way. In many ways, you could argue that Nightwing and Damian was very Buddy Cop, in the interplay between the two of them. It's that kind of tongue-in-cheek in high action that you get that just makes it work. It's interesting to say it with Tallulah, because Tallulah really is one of the guys. Yeah. And I mean, she's fantastic. What an amazing character. I love when she and Jonah, Jonah starts like sort of sweet talking her, but really the whole point of that whole thing is to, the delicate flower bit. That was so great. What did you call me?
Yeah. And when she's sitting there demanding that he calls her a delicate flower.
Yeah, oh, how great was that?
I howled at that scene.
Yes.
And again, beautiful artwork handling of it, because it could have been very, crude, but they covered up nicely, and it was done to the point where you don't lose, the humor of the moment, and even to the point where she breaks his nose, and during this is going on, and it's just that sheriff just standing there. Excuse me, you can kind of hear, the voices, and just everything that's happening. This is the kind of story I would have loved to see in a Jonah Hex movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those things that they did an animated short. You saw that, didn't you?
Yes, that was awesome.
They did an animated short that was part of these, for anybody listening that didn't, it was part of that Superman Shazam has all of them. That Superman Shazam, what was that called? Return of Black Adam, I think it was, wasn't it? They released a Blu-ray and a DVD, which was a collection of all the short features that they put in front of the various DVDs that they released. For a while there, they were putting showcase shorts, they were calling them. And they did a Green Arrow one, they did that one, they did Superman and Shazam. But the Jonah Hex was done based on a script from Grand Palmiotti, and it was a home run. I mean, it was that really cool story of redemption. And the Spectre one that they did, too, was really cool. I've really liked the shorts. I wish they would go back to doing more of those, because I thought that was a great way to get around the fact that you can't do a spotlight movie of every character, because you got to be worried about sales. But if you're doing all these Batman and Superman ones, why don't you tack on some of these other characters to just introduce the public at large to them for a draw? And I always thought those were a great bonus. I'm not sure why they made the decision to stop doing those, but I wish they'd go back to them, because I really liked all the ones that were released. But
oh yeah,
The Jonah Hex one was the movie you were asking for.
Oh, big time. That right there, well, that was just one piece of it, but, that style.
Yeah, I didn't mean it in the sense that
I know.
I meant that I would have liked to have seen that fleshed out the exact same way. I'm basically echoing your comments because I thought that'd be fantastic. Now, you saw the movie.
Yeah.
What did you think of the movie? Did you think it was as god-awful as it's been often accused?
Oh, no, I didn't think it was as god-awful. Well, I saw it with you, remember?
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, though.
Yeah, and even nowadays, there's some stuff I didn't like and I didn't think they needed. Like, they didn't need the supernatural element of it. But I kind of understood why they did it to, add to the thing. But the part that really annoyed me the most was the super weapon they built. That technology was beyond what they could have done back then. I would have rather seen them do like a massive super Gatling gun style. Instead of the rounds exploding with, nuclear force, actually have them be massive, like a giant Gatling gun, which was the technology of the time, but in a cannon format. So you have this massive cannon firing these massive cannonballs, and that would be, if you take, the destructive force that a cannon has, add to it with a heavy volume of a cannon fire that you would get from a Gatling gun, guess what? You would have that destructive weapon that they created. But because they went with that one single round could devastate a town, I'm like, that was the part that I didn't really like about the movie. The rest of it I was okay with. I would rather have seen them stick with a more traditional Western and not have the supernatural angle, but they kind of put it in with the story, and it was kind of neat, seeing some of the the ghost walking and some of the stuff that he did. I was like, okay, I could live with that. But that the supernatural ordinance is what I had the issue with the mostly in that movie.
Brolin was terrific as Hex.
Oh God, yeah.
And I say that agreeing with everything you just said. It didn't blow me away. It was okay. I'm probably giving it a little extra weight because I'm a big Jonah Hex fan, so it was great to see Jonah Hex, live on there. But I didn't think it was, a particularly great movie. I did like Brolin as Hex. And and that added a lot of extra points to a film that the film itself wasn't so great.
And even the gadgets he had. I didn't have a problem with that, where he had the twin mounted on the horse and stuff like that, which, again, if you look at the physics of it, it wouldn't work. But you know what? It's a movie. It's Hollywood. Let's have some fun with it. And some of this stuff, I didn't mind any of that stuff. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. You could see they were doing it for the audience. They were doing it for, moviegoers who don't know the comic. So that's why I parted. I was like, okay. But it's that one little thing really for me that kind of made it go, man.
You know what it was? It was too, I think we all as comic fans can bend. And we bend all the time with our movies. And I don't mind bending. There comes a difference between bending and breaking. And when you go too far, there comes a point where that rubber band is going to snap.
Yeah.
And that film hit a point where the rubber band snapped. So that's why I don't think it was an awful movie. I enjoyed it. It's not, my measuring stick is always rewatchability. And what drives that is just my own interest in seeing it again. I've watched it one time since seeing it in the theater. I didn't make it all the way through. I kind of got bored, and I just kind of moved along. That's kind of my measuring stick. And again, I'm not saying, I was glad I went with you and we saw it. It was a good experience, to see the movie. But that is the real measuring for me, is the rewatchability. Like Man of Steel. A lot of people say they don't like Man of Steel. But I've watched that multiple times, and I really enjoy the film. So that that rewatchability factor for me is a huge, huge factor on whether or not a film is good on my end. So,
agree.
Yeah, that one.
I've watched Man of Steel multiple times. Of course, I've watched the Nolan Dark Knight stuff. Mm-hmm. I've even watched Catwoman kind of multiple times. And it's the thing. It's like I'll see it on TV, and okay, if there's a couple scenes in Catwoman that I actually like. I thought they were really cool how they handled it. But with Hex, I've never seen that a second time. And it's...
You know what? I'm gonna argue on behalf of Hex. I've seen Catwoman once now, based on our conversation on the show with it. There's no way I would watch that again unless it was under duress. Yes, exactly. Whereas I'll be honest with you, the Jonah Hex film, I stopped watching because I just kind of wanted to do other things. it wasn't a statement of, oh, this is utter garbage, I don't want to finish watching it. It was, I'm kind of like, whereas if it was one of my favorite films, I would have never stopped watching. I would have come back to it at least, even if I paused it or something. In this case, I just didn't go back. But Catwoman, I wouldn't have made it to that on the second watch.
Well, let me clarify something.
Okay.
I'm not saying Catwoman's better than Jonah Hex.
Okay.
I don't want anyone thinking I am saying that, because I'm not.
Okay.
Jonah Hex was definitely much better than Catwoman. But it's, Catwoman, I've actually seen it on, and if it's, it'll be on like the USA Network, one of the cable networks. And depending if there's certain scenes on, I will watch through those scenes and walk away. Same thing probably with like Jonah Hex, that opening sequence. I probably would watch that again because that was that was well done. And there's a couple fight sequences I'd probably watch again, with Megan Fox and all that, when, her big reveal, and everything that happened there. I was like, I'd watch those probably again, but I never actually have had the opportunity because it's never really been on. I don't own either movie, and I have no desire to own either movie.
I'm bothered, though, and I almost feel like I should do an intervention for you. Like, because, where did you say you watched Catwoman again?
On the networks, the different network channels.
Yeah, but I mean, on what kind of service?
Cable.
Okay. How many channels does your cable have?
I should just flip it.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been like, wasn't there like static or something?
I'll tell you the scenes. Specifically the scenes in Catwoman that I like.
Right.
The one, and there's like only 3 or 4 of them at most. The one is when she's playing one-on-one basketball. Mm-hmm. I really like just the fun look. Again, it's all Halle Berry acting, by the way. It's not the script. It's her physical acting I actually really enjoy. And it's the playfulness, that cat-like playfulness that she has when she's playing basketball and just completely just owning, what's his name? I can't think of the male actors right now. And just that whole sequence where you see just the sheer joy. It's a cat-like jubilance. The second scene is when she's talking to her friend after she starts the whole Catwoman thing, and she's just walking casually across the furniture, and she's moving like a cat. And she's got, again, it's the physical acting of Halle Berry. I'm like, this is a cool sequence. I will sit and watch that sequence, time and time again.
Don't you think the
last scene is when she breaks out of jail. Because, again, her physical moving, how she's moving through the jailhouse. Again, it's her physical acting. Those 3 scenes I will watch over and over again. No other scene in that movie would I say this is a good sequence.
Don't you think one of the major problems of that movie, though, is that they called it Catwoman?
Yeah.
Like that they were and you could do another movie called Catwoman and not have it based on DC Comics. But this was billed as a movie based on DC Comics. So, because, it was a licensed DC movie. Why on earth would you do what they did? I don't understand it. Like, if you're going to go that far off of the beaten path, why not just make an original character and be done with it? The movie would have been better served. Or am I wrong? I mean, I don't know. I feel that movie, the big problem for me is it's supposed to be Catwoman. There was absolutely nothing. I mean, did you see anything in there that was remotely connecting other than the fact that she had a costume that connected it with DC Comics?
No, there was nothing. There was no connection to DC. They didn't even throw out the obligatory mention of Gotham or anything. They didn't mention any of the DC cities or nothing. They did their best to make sure this was not associated with DC, even though they said it was. And it's the Dolph Lundgren Punisher all over again. They took his version of the Punisher, and they're like, oh, we don't want to be too comic booky. That's why we're not going to have it look like the comic book. Wait, you're basing it on a comic book character, but you don't want it to be comic booky. The Catwoman, they did the same thing. They have this wonderful history and these great Catwoman, legacy, and they just completely threw it out and did their own story that just it fell short on multiple spots. It was, And how did we get talking about Catwoman?
Jonah Hex.
We got a great book like Jonah Hex in front of us.
we started talking about how disappointing the Jonah Hex movie was, and I think we somehow got on a tangent of overly similar movies that are universally detested.
We got a despair spiral, is what we went down.
Yeah. Because the sad part is with Hex in particular, and maybe for you a little bit for Catwoman, because you're in a different place with Catwoman than I am, but I can respect it. The Jonah Hex movie, I think I see so much potential there for it you had Josh Brolin playing Hex, and I thought he was really doing a good job, and it was almost like people were trying to sabotage him.
Exactly. And you know what? And I agree completely. He was an amazing Hex, and he would have been, and even if they would have if they would have given him a better solid script, I think that would have been an absolute phenomenal thing. And same thing I said with Halle Berry. She is a phenomenal actress. I really, she goes into it, and she's got that presence. And as I said, it was her physical movements of those 3 scenes that just impressed me. If they had given her a solid script and a solid story to back her skills, Catwoman would have been a phenomenal story. But it wasn't.
Let's go back to Hex and then the bar scene again. So the sheriff comes in. Basically like, we don't go for that sort of thing around here. And, the two of them are just, very casual, nonchalant about the whole thing, cover up, rediscover your modesty, which there's an irony to saying that with Tallulah.
Yeah.
But, the girl even where Tallulah finally took her down with the key in the eye. And she's like, I didn't kill her yet. But of course, he left her in a state where there was no way she was going to recover for that. I was pretty sure if she wasn't dead, she was going to be, from what happened in that sequence of events. Yep. This is stuff that I want to see. Like, they need a Jonah Hex animated series. And it needs their scripts right here. Like, this I want to see. And I don't want to see it on a regular network. I want to see it on, like, HBO or Showtime or Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Do you watch Archer?
No, but I have seen it, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, that would be a great, to put that on before or after Archer. That time frame, it's you can get away with doing a Jonah Hex at that time, and that might be a perfect block for that. But this really would be a great animated series.
Yes. Oh God, yeah. It's like the funny nature and just that sequence as you're talking about. Just I love that because I'm glad you brought that up because I was chuckling about that. So it was kill or be killed. Only I ain't killed her. Actually, you did, and you just see the look of the young lady's face there. You're like, oh man, because that sequence before, she takes a key and drives it into her eye. That again, just the sheer gut check fighting style of these two, and it's Hex trained her, but it's even beyond Hex training. It's she's taken it on to another level. It's kind of like some of the Barbara Gordon arguments or some of the Nightwing arguments you get where they're trained by the Bat, but they are their own fighter. They are their own style. Tallulah did learn from Hex, but you know what? She's going to personalize it her own way. And through that sequence, you saw some great, violent, wonderfully choreographed, action sequences that fit these two. Each one fighting a little bit different. They had some whimsical moments in there, but you never lose the seriousness of that fight. And I think that to me, is a great Jonah Hex story.
The backup, Madam 44. We got to see that through a couple issues. The idea of money, and I think this is very contemporary. The idea that they come across this mine, it's really just a great opportunity for them. It's the 3 of them splitting it. Dad's defending their third partner, the kid, who's kind of being misguided and being told that they're out to bump him out of his share and all that. So it gets to the point where he tries to blow them up in the mine, which kills her dad. Or does it? Because this issue was the one, and I loved it. I thought it was really great. She comes out of the mine, but she comes out of the mine like somewhere else.
Yeah, we got multiple moons and demonic world type of existence, and I liked that I didn't know where this was going to go because I had no idea about anything about this character or anything for history or whatnot. So it was a complete new story, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And you see the greed, and then when she pops out on this demon world, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And you see, the first thing I noticed, of course, was the moon. So I'm like, okay, so she's not downstairs. She's somewhere else. She popped up somewhere in some way. And I thought that was a kind of a neat way to introduce this character. I want more of this character. I want to see where her story goes.
She has a history. She was actually, her first appearance was All-Star Western 117 back in 1961, and she was created by Gil Kane and Gardner Fox. And I got to admit, I didn't know that. I had to look it up. But I loved the story. It was not what I expected at all. I'm glad that it played off of, DC's delving more into its multiverse. And, with Earth 2 and what's going on there, but also this sense that there is some form of crisis coming. We saw it at the end of Forever Evil, where you see the Anti-Monitor there.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see more and more of the roots of the multiverse being brought into the DC universe. And it was cool to see that in this with Madam 44, because I totally took it as she's on an alternate Earth or an alternate dimension or whatever, which, that kind of stuff is really cool to see in DC's past as well as in its present day. And that part I really liked. And how there's a possibility, is her dad alive? Is it another version of her dad? I want to see more Madam 44. I want to see where this goes. I want to see what's really going on with her dad.
Oh, yeah, and I like the fact when she buried the demon-type creature and put the cross over his grave, the cross bursts into flames.
Uh-huh.
I thought, I was sitting there, I'm like, is this a demon world? Is this a demon dimension? Purgatory? Where is she at? Because there's still, in my mind, there's still questions. Because on one hand, I'm thinking, okay, alternate dimension, alternate Earth. But then when I saw the burning cross, I'm like, that's usually burning crosses kind of signify something else, and you start seeing the different type of tech, that bee that the thing shot at the horse that wraps up, and it was the driller, they called it, and a little demon-like looking creature. And again, it's I want more of this story. I was kind of bumming when I saw the end. I'm like, oh no, come on! I was expecting next couple issues would you get more of these stories.
Can we talk a little bit about Secret Origins?
Oh yeah.
The new series, and kind of let's talk casually about it, because you and I both talked about this one. It's a different sort of book to discuss. We had issue number 1 and 2 come out so far. And issue number 1 had Superman, Robin, and Supergirl. And then issue number 2 had Batman, Aquaman, and Starfire. And I was a real big fan of this one because when we had the reboot, the New 52 reboot, a lot of characters we were dropped into their present status quo, and there was a history to them that we didn't know what was the same, what was different, how did it change. Not only did I want to see that from your mainstays like Superman and Batman, I wanted to see it with characters like Starfire, with Aquaman, with people like that. Robin, to see, what was Dick Grayson's actual origin, Supergirl. These are things that we've had alluded to within their series, but to actually see them out. What do you think about this book? I mean, it's a meaty book every month so far. There's a lot of pages. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm enjoying them. I'm getting them. But to be honest with me, I was like, most of these stories I already know what's happening through the monthly series. Okay. And so when they're announcing Secret Origins, like, okay, I kind of know all the stories, and I was wondering if I was going to get something different, something extra beyond what the actual series, what I learned through the series. Because by this point in time, so far, all of these stories they've told, we've pretty much seen, but we're getting just a couple of them, we're getting a little bit extra page here or an extra page there. And I'm kind of hoping we get some of the characters that I really don't know yet. The characters that I'm like, okay, I don't know their history. They really haven't delved too deeply into it.
Do you feel that way for, like, Aquaman's origin, though, where they were really showing some of his teenage years that we haven't seen? Like, I really liked that one. I thought that was, like, really rich and different. It's stuff that we didn't see on... I'm not disputing you. Certain things you're saying are true, and I agree, but... Like, when you get to a story like Aquaman's and Starfire's, I thought those were really great because I felt like both of them gave us something new.
And I agree with you on the comments on Aquaman and Starfire. We did get some more stuff in there, and they did flesh out some of the details with Starfire and her captivity. They've brought it up in Red Hood and the Outlaws, and we've seen some of the events that happened. We actually did see it, but they did flesh it out more. And Aquaman as a teen, we did get more of that. I personally wanted more of that type of stuff with Dick Grayson. We got to see some of the training, we got to see some of this stuff, but as like the meat of him being Robin, we already knew everything that had happened. I would have liked to have seen more of his time before he puts on before he starts down the journey of as Robin. Same thing like with Supergirl. We saw, her at the end, her at the end of the life and all that. I think they could have used the Secret Origins to tell a young Supergirl story, and not, what we've already seen. It's, again, and there was a sequence with Batman I really liked that, because they've told the Batman story multiple times, but I did like that one sequence where Bruce is talking to Alfred, and you could see the little kid, the birth of the code. Like, I don't want anybody else to go through what I went through. And you see just the coldness in this little boy's eyes. And you're like, right there, that's the birth of the Bat. That's the beginning of this whole process. And I think that was a neat sequence because, again, they've talked about it, and we've, one of the running jokes is, Batman is the dream of a little kid. It's not, you think about it, that's why, there's not a vigilante out there nowadays, because it was created by the pain of this little child, and he continued through his adult life. And that's why Bruce always holds on to that pain, and he can't completely let it go. And I liked seeing that bit. I would have liked to see more fleshed out, and I don't know where the rest of the series is going to get, and those type of moments. So I'm not knocking Secret Origin. I think it's a good read. But it's not as high on my list of the reading.
Did you feel that way with the Superman story, though? Because I thought that tread a lot of new ground, especially with the death of the Kents. Because that was one where we found out that they looked like they were victims of a mugging of some sort, or maybe even a hate crime against Clark.
I thought we got all that.
We never had that spelled out.
We didn't?
No, we knew they died.
Well, yeah, but I thought. Okay, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of I'll be honest, I must have just glossed over it because I thought that was...
Because you saw the two of them, there's a hubcap on the ground, and you're seeing that Jonathan's glasses are kind of crushed, and his mom's laying down there. They're both laying like pools of blood. I don't know what happened there. I guess I didn't assume... I assumed both died, but I didn't think it was a victim of like a mugging or whatever, or even a hate... I guess I'm more alluding towards like when Clark was being picked on...
Yeah.
And Mom was defending him. You see, like, on the next page, that it's so close to that I can't help but wonder if it wasn't due to her standing up for Clark, because he isn't much older in the next panel, if at all.
See, I took it as a car accident because I'm looking at it right now, and I remember going through that, and just, because of you mentioned with the hubcap and all that stuff. Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm reading too much into it. So, maybe you're right, it is a car accident due to that. I just couldn't help but wonder with its proximity to, her coming out with a broom.
Right, yeah. And I didn't even think of that, and...
I might be wrong, though. I could be... admittedly, I could be, because when you're saying that it could be from a car accident, I'm sitting here like, well, there's broken glass and stuff there. But I guess I was wondering if that was... because the two of them got such a... I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing both of them on the ground bloodied.
Right.
And they're both facing different directions. And
yeah.
I guess I'm looking at that and I'm like, I don't know if I feel that's a car accident or not. But
they're on the freeway because you can see the double yellow line.
Right. I don't know.
I think that's why I was just thinking a car accident. But to be honest, that could have been the story they could have, fleshed out a little bit and actually use the Secret Origin to show how they died.
I'm with you. I'd like to see more of that stuff. I guess I'm not really disputing you as much as saying I'm enjoying what I'm getting. I would like more. I'm with you. And I'd like to see where this series goes as it goes further. There's certain stories like Nightwing I enjoyed. I'm a Nightwing junkie. And Kyle Higgins' writing of Nightwing. Yeah. But I felt like it tied nicely into giving us the details of his origin in relation to what we've learned from his book.
And I think part of it is what I had in my head, what this was going to be. In my head, I wasn't thinking this was going to be a retelling of stories, the origins that we already knew, because they put the secret on it. I was thinking these are going to be stuff that we've never seen before, and the fact that it was stuff added on, like they had those extra sequences that showed Ma Kent coming to Clark's aid. They showed a little bit of Clark dealing with his powers. I was thinking there would be something else beyond that, and that's I think so. Going into this, I had one mindset, and it's like this. I think that's what threw me off, because I agree with you. This was cool. Writing and the artwork was wonderful, So I'm not knocking any of the creative side of it. I think it's just I had A in mind and I got B, and that's kind of what threw me for a loop.
And it's not really playing into what your expectations were.
Right.
Yeah, and I could see that if you're thinking a series is one thing and it winds up being the other. I'm liking it a lot. I'm torn because I do find with some of the stories when I'm reading them, I wish that story was the whole issue.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more, but that also happens when I'm done with a regular full-size comic where I get to the end, I'm like, well, now why wasn't this double-sized? That's the greedy part of me. I've liked, in particular, two of my favorite origins were Aquaman and Starfire. I think just the Aquaman in particular stands out because I really liked seeing the younger Aquaman kind of have a role in this and see what his life was like adapting to our world. And I really enjoyed that. So that was probably my favorite of the... Do you have one that was your favorite that stood out for you? Or
I'm gonna sound like I'm repeating you, but it's gonna be the Aquaman one, just because there was more of that I didn't really know, and there was some, and that's the kind of stuff I was thinking we would get extra stuff beyond what we knew. So I'm going to say probably the Aquaman would be my favorite, or the Batman also. Again, I love that sequence where you see the birth of the code. You see the beginning, the true birth of it, and that moment, that flash in the dead eyes of that little boy where it's the birth of Batman. Those two sequences were really some cool stuff for me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Starfire one, too, just because kind of learning more of what Starfire was like in this world. Was there one you didn't care for? Did any fall into that category, or were they just kind of like,
no,
they were okay?
Definitely nothing that I would say I didn't care for. There was none there's no negative dislike for any of the stories. I thought they were all really cool. And again, and it's funny because the more I'm talking, I'm thinking there was some cool moment. There are moments. I've got cool moments from each of the story, but not like oh wow, this is awesome. I think that's the best way for me to kind of put my finger on what is with the story. I've got cool moments here in this story, cool moment here, but not an overall, yes, this is awesome.
Superman's origin in particular, I guess I kind of wanted to ask you about that one, being such a Superman fan. How do you feel about that? Like, there's some blatant changes to the direction he's going in origin-wise. Does that fit your idea? I guess, does it fit your idea of Superman now, and how do you like it in comparison to your personal feeling of Superman? Because when I see a lot of people posting about Superman, whether they fall on either side, it has to do with their concept of who Superman is. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong there. I think he's an adaptable character, kind of like what Batman is. Batman's an adaptable character as well, who've stood the test of time because of their ability to adapt. Where do you fall, though, like when you see the Superman origin? I quite liked it, but where do you fall?
My personal favorite Superman origin is where both Ma and Pa Kent are still alive.
Yeah, I like that too.
Because every story I've ever read where it's the Clark getting the parental advice from Ma and Pa Kent, I love those sequences. And it always, every time Pa dies, it breaks my heart all over again. And even when I read stories that I've read 100 times, I still get that same, oh man, I still get that feeling and that gut wrench. When I read the story. So for me, I always like those stories. But how it currently is, I don't have an issue with it. Yeah. The current Superman origin, it fits, it fits this universe, it fits this jive. It's kind of, you can see why this Clark Kent had, such a long period before he actually became Superman. Why he kind of stood away and stood out in the shadows. Part of the thing of the creation of Superman is that support structure with his parents saying, yes, you've been given this gift and it's, you got to do what's right, and just them encouraging him to come out as Superman, to be Superman and step into the light. So I could see why our universe Superman would be a little bit different than he was in the past. And I'm cool with those differences because we still get that core of Superman. We still get that true hero belief that I always thought, dun, dun, dun. I still get that Superman. I'm still getting that Superman. How he got from point A to point B is different, but it's not a disruption of who he is.
I'm with you on I prefer the parents being alive. I think probably for similar reasons to you. Kind of my experience with Superman growing up was the reruns of the George Reeves series. That was my first kind of getting to know Superman live action. And then I got to know Superman in the comic books and the Justice League. I've said before, I was a Batman guy growing up. So, Batman in cartoons, Batman in comics, Batman, I'm still Batman. But I always loved Superman. I loved the character, and I was really into him when I got introduced to the character. So then Christopher Reeve movies came out, and I'd already been reading like DC Comics Presents and stuff like that, Broken Issues, and then lots of action and Superman from flea markets and stuff. That was really a lot of where I got my stuff. Superman and Muhammad Ali and all those neat things. So, the Christopher Reeve movies came out, and I think as a kid growing up, we were just, that on the big screen, did you see those in the theater?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mind-blowing, right?
I still remember, I still grin when I think about that stuff, because I'm like you. I was, I remember the black and white, George Reeves Superman, and just going, oh, okay, and as a kid going, huh, and then the Super Friends and all of those, the cartoon versions. Then when you do see that first on-screen moment, and I still the dun 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 will always be the Superman theme to me. Always, no matter what, and any incarnation of the character, I want the movie somewhere in there. And I do love those dramatic moments where the emblem just slowly comes into place, and you hear the music and it starts building. These are things from my childhood that I latch onto, and I still grin and I still think about. And there's a lot of times when I'm reading the comic book, I hear Christopher Reeve's voice. There are times when I'll hear Tom Welton's voice, and even sometimes I'm going to go back to Dean Cain. He's another voice that I'll hear sometimes, depending on how the character is being written. So these are stuff I lock onto, and it's I am very excited and I'm enjoying the stories. It is different, but it's still good.
I heard that you were walking down the street and you heard Christopher Reeve's voice. Get all kinds of things going on in that head of yours.
Oh, well, hey,
I'm with you. I know certain sequences and moods, when they come across in the comics, they invoke kind of what you see on the big screen. Where I was taking it to for me, and this I know is true with you, the Lois and Clark show, when we got to see the parents on screen. I was already reading and enjoying Superman. I got really heavily into reading Superman monthly, where I had a budget where I could do it, with Byrne's Man of Steel. I had read him before and enjoyed everything, so it isn't really a disconnect between that. But it was at a time where I was a big John Byrne fan from his work at Marvel. And the idea that John Byrne's coming over to DC and he's going to do Superman was like very appealing to me. I picked up Man of Steel, loved it, was just blown away, and kept reading. With reading Man of Steel and then Lois and Clark going on television, the idea that the parents were alive was really, really captivating to me. Because I was a fan of the George Reeves series. When I watched the reruns, I was a fan of everything that I'd seen before, everything I'd read before in the comics. I do misrepresent myself sometimes when I make it seem like because I'm a Batman fan, I wasn't a Superman fan. We're all fans of multiple characters. We just have our main favorite. But Superman, mind-blowingly cool. But the Man of Steel series became kind of my Superman only because I was reading it real time, in the sense that I was no longer grabbing back issues and trying to, get caught up mentally on where Superman actually is. I was following Superman when Superman was being published.
Yeah.
And Man of Steel was my first real exposure to that, and just really loved the character. And that's why I think I have this really strong affinity for the parents being alive and liking that. So I'm like you with that.
And I think back, with me, in the comic book universe, two scenes that I absolutely, to this day, still love and are still in, my upper echelon of favorite comic book scenes are... The first one, well, they both actually take place after Death of Superman, but the first one was when Lois first calls the Kents.
Yeah.
And she is just so disheveled, and she's like, oh my God, Jonathan, I forgot to call you. And it's just, and you can just hear going on, we lost it, but you lost your son. And you can hear just how she's completely disheveled. And Martha just turns to Jonathan and goes, pack your bags. Lois needs us. Mm-hmm. And I love that sequence. Again, I was like, yes, right there. That's Ma Kent. That's, Pa Kent. Going in there. They're hurting. Their son is dead, but they know Lois needs them. And I'm like, oh, man, that was just a powerful sequence. And then after, the other scene is when Jonathan is dealing with his own heart attack, and he has that sequence where he's, searching for the flyer. And he has that moment where it's him and Clark, and he's like, your whole life you've been thinking you're a human. Well, stop thinking that. You're a Kryptonian. And I'm reading that going, yeah, come back, baby. And I was hoorah, that was a hoorah moment because it's Jonathan bringing his son back. And I was like, man, that's awesome.
Did you think partway through Return of Superman, because I loved that story. I thought it was really great. And it was long form. It was cool to kind of see each issue devoted to a different Superman. I put that under quotes. But the cool part about that was I hit a point where I started thinking to myself, well, and I think Cyborg Superman really made me feel this way. And the idea that John, Henry Irons, was like the heart of Superman. Yes. I felt like each one of them somehow was a part of Superman, and them coming together on some level was going to be what brought Superman back. Because I started looking for, like, okay, they killed Superman. They got to bring him back. How is that going to happen? So I thought they got the clone, they got the cyborg, they've got the Eradicator, and each one of them seemed to have some sort of element that was Superman, on some level. And that I felt like if you put them all together, we would have the qualities and traits, and eventually, would lead to them having to somehow mesh to become Superman. Didn't see where it was going.
When I first started reading that, my thought process was going to be, it was kind of like a Captain Planet type of thing where each one would sacrifice a piece of themselves and it would bring back Superman. And that's where I was thinking that's when I first started reading, that's how I was thinking this thing was going to play out. Each one would give up a piece of themselves, then bam, we would get Superman back. And that's how we were going to get the return of Superman. So while I was reading that whole thing, I was like, man, this is awesome. And that was, again, for me, that was the birth of, Steel, and just the character, again, his personal just character, that I was like, this is a cool guy. This is somebody I would want to be friends with. This is somebody I would want to hang with. I couldn't keep up with him remotely, but he's a guy I would want to help be Superman. And I love that character. And, just the Superboy clone, I was like, oh my God. And then he, as a hero, started growing and started developing. And there was some cool stuff that happened throughout that whole Return of Superman. And then we get that final Superman moment back where I was like, yes. And I still to this day will cheer when I read those sequences of that, that first Return of Superman, when he comes back, and even though he's got the super mullet, I'm like, you know what? Business up front, party in the back, I'm all in.
And the super mullet stuck around for a while.
Hey, I thought it looked cool, But then again, not many people will say I have good taste. So.
Well, but at the time, it was. It worked. It was contemporary. When you look back at it now, it looks severely dated, and it looks like a bad idea. I'm saying if you were looking on the outside at it, I'm assuming a lot of people who look at it now and go, "They did what?
What are you talking about?"
Yeah. But when you're reading it at the time, it just kind of worked. Yeah. So I was enjoying it too. It was a fun era for Superman. It's really a cool character to read back then, with what they were doing. So I don't know. It's I'm with you on that story. You know what I loved, when either the parents or Lois or other friends and colleagues interacted with each of the other people, they were looking for signs of Clark.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to determine, are any one of you my son, my my guy, my friend, whatever. They were looking for that glimpse. They would find elements, but not enough. It was fun.
And especially the Lois sequences when she was interviewing all of them, just trying to figure out, okay, who is this person? And I love those were some really cool moments with her and the cyborg Superman. And that's why when he turned out to be a super villain, that really threw me for a loop. Because he was one of my main characters. I was thinking bits and pieces. I was thinking Cyborg Superman was going to sacrifice his physical form.
I was too.
and he was going to sacrifice him, and Eradicator would kind of team up, and there would be some, with John Henry putting, keeping things, with his science and technology, and then you got some clone DNA coming into the mix as well, because Superboy's powers were a little bit different. So I was thinking, okay, with that kind of mixing together, that would create it. But I was thinking Cyborg Superman was going to completely sacrifice himself for Superman. That's in my mind. So when he turned out to be the big bad, I was like, what? What the heck are they doing?
Yeah, and I honestly greatly appreciate where the story went, because they deliberately teased us in a direction. It's funny how you've got such a rich history with the character there, and there's a lot of people listening to the show probably right now who are pre-Crisis fans of Superman that read him religiously back then, and maybe that was their guy. I mean, I've read a lot of Kurt Swan stuff through flea market stuff and things. I know I keep throwing that out there, and I don't mean to diminish it. It was, as a kid growing up, I don't know if you had that experience at all, going to a flea market and finding a box full of comics that you got for next to nothing. Because it was literally, you'd walk out of there for a couple bucks, and you didn't have like one or two issues. You had a nice box full of comics, and it was really, a handful of dollars. So my stepdad would take me on the weekends. We'd go out to Pymatuning Lake in Pennsylvania, and we'd be out there, and we'd go on the weekend sometimes to basically go to these flea markets. And I was on a mission. I don't care what else they had there; it just didn't matter to me. I was looking comics, because that was really when you go to a comic shop and you would get one or two books if you were lucky. And your monthly reading was that. But then all of a sudden you go to this flea market and you walk out with like a huge box where you would have multiple issues of a comic. They weren't usually sequential. Right. But it was still like a lot of reading. Making your way through it was so much fun. It didn't matter that like part of it was chewed off or whatever. I wanted the story. Now, I mean, it would have been great if they were all mint. Absolutely. But, I had some with, like, there was writing on it and things like that. I was just as giddy as can be because they were books. You would never get a book that you'd read. So you had this just wealth of comics. So I got to know the pre-Crisis Superman really that way through issues of Action and Superman Family, the giant-size issues that they had. And that stuff was great, just really. And then every so often, the real gem would be A World's Finest, because now I'm getting Batman and Superman in there. It was just really, really terrific stuff. So you get to identify with that version of the character that's clearly different than the Byrne version. And the Byrne version, while, if you look at it from today's standards looking back, a lot closer to the pre-Crisis, but they made a lot of changes modernizing the character. And now this new version is real interesting because it's really a true. It's a lot more like what Byrne did back in the day. They've really taken the character and completely modernized him to today. I can't help but wonder if we had the internet back when Byrne took over, what that would have been like.
Oh God, yeah.
Where people actually had that open outlet to complain. I wonder how many of them would have been driven by that.
Yeah, I think if again, that was like the first big reboot and the first really big change of it. And for me, it wasn't a big reboot. I wasn't. I'm trying to, I came in after he had already done a big reboot, after he had done all his changing. And so for me, jumping in, it was already set up and established. So I'm jumping in, reading it, and I'm like, oh, okay. Mom, Pa, there they are. And I wasn't thinking anything, the changes seemed normal to me. But, again, with this new 52, I got to experience somewhat of what people went through back then and seeing a modernization of it. And it's weird because it's little stuff that you notice second and third round through. Like we're talking the Secret Origins. I got a page up right now where it's the baby Clark, and he's holding up a chair over his head as he's playing underneath it. Now, the first time I look at this, I see, you see Ma and Pa Kent going, whoa, what's going on here? But as I'm looking through it this time, you see him, he's playing with a little space shuttle. Now, obviously, back in the day, the space shuttle really was just a brand new thing, and it wouldn't have been readily out there. So just that little bit of, modern day technology, or modern day toys that he would have. So it's kind of little stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, And I'm with you on all of that. I want to say one more thing about the past just for a second, because when we talk about Man of Steel, I think one of the things that comes out for me from that era, reading it at the time, it's part of me that just wants to reminisce. So thank you for everybody for just taking a second to be patient with me on this. That era was so interesting because it was 86, 87. We were getting stuff at the same time that we were getting Man of Steel. We were getting Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
We were getting Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters. Miller was taking, his pages from, what Alan Moore was doing and stuff like that. It was just a really innovative era. I think a lot of that stuff would have been taken apart back in the day if you'd had the internet.
Oh, big time. And it's funny because you say that because I'm thinking I didn't read Superman until I started reading him probably in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I started reading right around right before Death of Superman's when I started getting into and reading Superman. So for me, it was already a couple years already established universe before I jumped into it.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I see. This is, I guess, that's why with the New 52 I get excited, because it really does take me back to what they were doing 86, 87.
Yeah.
They were really trying to make these characters feel modern. Back then, in 86, 87, if you were reading back then, you didn't love everything that they were doing. They took some risks, and some of them didn't pay off. Others did, though, and you had great books that came out in that era. Just like we're having today, where you've got some reinvigoration, some interest in some new challenges that they put forth for these characters. So right now is really an exciting time. I do miss the parents, though. I want to get into Time Machine and rescue the Kents. Because whatever that was, a car accident or a mugging or whatever the whole thing was, I don't care. I want to go back in time and stop it before it happens.
Yeah, protect them. Make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Right.
Let's do some time changing. Come on.
Just because, like you, I love the characters. Here's where I agree with you on Secret Origins. You know what I'd love? I don't dislike any of the stories that they've told. What I'd love is a Secret Origin of the Kents.
Oh, yeah.
How cool would it be to see the Superman story through their lens? I want to see it from their eyes. I want to travel with the Kents to see what's going on. But maybe what led up to that, too. And that kind of thing would be great. So I hope the series does well, and they take an opportunity to tell some unique stories within this, where it's not always some of the bigger ones. Because those unique stories are the ones that I'm finding the most interesting, which is why the Aquaman stands out for me. Not that I disliked any of the other ones, but the Aquaman was one where I was really kind of like, wow, this is really a new story.
For me, the story I really do want to see, and I hope they do it, is Alfred. I really would love for them to do Alfred as one of them. And just, whether it's just his origin, whether it's the events of the Wayne, of the birth of the Bat through Alfred's eyes, something like that would be an awesome story being told.
Alfred watching television and grunting.
With the right writer, I'd watch it.
Little side panels like him watching Game of Thrones and just clearing his throat or something. Then they go on to a different story.
You give me the correct creative team, I'd pick it up.
Let's talk about Justice League United.
Next discussion will be Justice League United. Number 1, the writer is Jeff Lemire. Artist is Mike McCone, with colorist Marcello Maiolo, Maiolo, with letterer Carlos M. Mangual. Cover by Mike McCone with Gabe Eltieb. Variant cover by Gene Ha. Associate editor Ricky Purdin, with group editor Eddie Berganza. Apologies to those names I massively butchered.
So this is Hawkman and his amazing friends. Although I don't think he's going to be on the team. Do you? I hope all the cover issues do not have him listed on them. Right.
So I don't know if he's going to be there, but if they're featuring him as heavily as they are, he's got to be on the team, right?
Well, they're featuring Lobo too, so I don't know. Here's whom I think we can safely assume. We've got Adam Strange, Green Arrow, Stargirl, obviously, Animal Man, Martian Manhunter, and our brand new character. which we should talk about her. What do you think about the new character?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like when you're mixing it up, pulling a Canadian.
Yeah.
So again, it's something different. I'm curious what the powers are based going to be on, because it looks a little supernatural. It looks a little bit, transformative. So I think she's, changes into something else.
Doesn't she pull her powers from, the area?
Or this, I kind of took it she was pulling it from the spirit world in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even just, the spirit world. So it's not like she's a magic, but there's something even beyond that. She walks, it kind of like she walks the path. So she channels into that, and that's where she's getting her, abilities from. So I'm thinking she's going to be a little bit different depending on where she's at, what type of stuff is around her.
So it's Equinox is the new character. I was drawing a blank on her name. That's why I wanted to check on that. I guess part of me is still assuming that Hawkman, like you're saying, is going to be on the team just because he's being featured. And we haven't seen Supergirl yet, who was on the original Zero cover.
Yeah.
So I see her being on the team as well.
Yeah, she's got her issues right now, and I'm thinking when that clears up, then maybe she's going to be on this team.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I like seeing Hawkman on the team. I like seeing him around. I like the fact that, again, he is Hawkman. He is throwing down. So it is kind of neat. This version of Hawkman I enjoy. So I'm glad he landed somewhere, and I hope he has a permanent spot on this team. I hope they flesh him out and use him, because Lemire's a good writer, and I think he could pull out a really cool Hawkman.
Here's my question. I wonder if the jump 5 years will change this team. Or maybe that's when we'll see people. You know what I'm saying? Because we're close to that. I mean, we're talking about we've got issue 2, 3, and 4, then the jump, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, we got a couple more months and then we get the jump. So maybe, that's
when Hawkman joins. Yeah, I don't know. Or we're going to see a team that's already been in place. They had them. I don't know. It's cool. I'm very, very interested.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I would assume that when we do the 5-year jump, we're probably going to lose some characters. There's probably going to be some people who were on the initial formation aren't around 5 years later. And Hawkman could be one of those people that isn't around. I don't like saying that because I like you, I do like the character, but if you look at the cover art, if you're looking at some of the stuff, maybe he's somebody who's around for this first opening arc, and then after that's gone. But I'm speculating, I'm making guesses, so I don't know.
Yeah, and how does that play into what happened to Stormwatch?
Yeah,
in that series, which I don't know. I'm really liking Adam Strange in this. What's your feelings about him? I know I was, I think, more of a fan.
Yeah.
Out of the two of us of the space miniseries when they were coming out. Am I being fair on that, or
you're probably more of a fan? I enjoyed it, so I'm not gonna but I think you were though. To be honest, I really did. That was some cool sequences with him, and again, he was a character. That's how I got to know him. Was that sequence? So that was really my introduction and understanding of who he is and everything that happened where he came.
I'm a little off then.
Yeah.
On your enjoyment of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Captain Comet and stuff like that. You done all that?
Oh yeah. I dig that whole space opera thing. And again, that was my introduction of those characters. So this version we're getting is a dramatic difference. But again, I'm like, this kind of is a cool way of him doing it. In a way, I did like the fact that he was the Earthling that got Zeta beamed to that planet, then he improvised, adapted, overcame, and whatnot, and he became that champion over there. But on the other hand, this looks kind of a cool storyline at the birth of the character where he basically stumbles on this stuff. He's an archaeologist who stumbles on these artifacts. And then this alien spacesuit, he's like, hey, let me just slap this on. And you get that cool scene when he falls down, into the pit. He's like, oh, and he looks and he sees the suit and he's got that big grin on his face going, ooh, what's this? I did enjoy that. And it wasn't, again, it's a birth of a hero type moments. Down the line, he's going to be more of the confident, and understanding other worlds and whatnot. But for right now, this is, who he is. And it has that element of realism that you get, in a really good story where you're talking these supernatural, these super freaky things of aliens and space, travel and all that kind of stuff. But there's a realistic element in how he's reacting to it.
Let me ask you this. With not having a ton of history with Adam Strange, when you read this version, do you, and there's no right or wrong answer because there's 3 different choices here. Are you more connected to the new version, the previous version that you read in the miniseries, or do you fall somewhere in the middle because you liked both? Like what? Like, how does that work out for you? Because I walked into those minis back when, those Starlin ones, really knowing Adam Strange. So, I was more on board there. But where does that work for you? It might be the same experience. I don't know, because you read those.
I think I got right now I have a more solid connection to the old stuff.
Okay.
Just because, this is my Adam Strange. This is the first version, the first introduction. At first time I said, "Oh, this is a pretty cool story. I like how this goes." And it was the first time my first acceptance of them. But again, over time I've learned that change is good. That there can be some variations, there can be some different stuff that happens, and again, that's why I'm looking at this, going, "Okay, this is different, but this is also kind of cool." So I'm not going to knock this. I'm going to give this some time. I don't have such a passionate lock on the previous story that it's going to block me from saying this is something. The way I attribute it, like there's elements of the character that I think, I can see the potential. Some of the cool stuff I thought about Adam was the fact that he didn't have superpowers. It was science. It was knowledge. It was that pure adventurer spirit. And I love those whole sequences when he's working to try to bring the family back home, get back to his family, figure out, the path and everything, just get home and be with his wife, his kids, and, all that. I still see that could eventually come out in this guy. This is the beginning of that character. So yes, he's different, but this is a younger version of the hero that I knew.
I am so loving that Jeff Lemire is still on Animal Man. I mean, that was, when that series came to an end, I was really, really sad because I was loving what Lemire was doing. Then when I heard that the character was going to be featured on this, I was like, oh, that is so awesome, because I just love his take. Yeah. And I love the idea of him and Green Arrow working together and what that's looking like. The Martian Manor Hunter. He's looking for manners everywhere. Yes. Martian Manhunter and Stargirl was something that we both, I think, fell equally in love with back with Forever Evil. I just thought that really advanced that relationship and naturally led to this. This is a great team. I'm hoping people are giving this a chance because it's a natural evolution of what happened with the previous team. They're no longer sanctioned, and they're trying to reinvigorate and reignite the name brand worldwide that has been so tarnished, and I really love that.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely on that. And I was going to make a quick comment about just the buddy cop sequences that we talked about before. You get that with Green Arrow and Animal Man.
Oh yeah.
And I think that again, it's the writing, it's the right writer doing it. Lemire writing them as that buddy cop. And even like you think back to the first issue, but you're Animal Man. Why do you keep saying that? You're Animal Man. And just that little bit of digs, a little bit of, kind of knocking him down, but it's the beginning of a friendship. It's a beginning of, you can see these two throwing down for each other and going that extra notch, not just because they're the good guys, they're the heroes, but you start to see that connection. And that's something I want to see long-term, these two on the team. I want to see Stargirl and Martian Manhunter 100% on this team. These are two other people I definitely want to see. If we have a core of this team, right there, that's the 4 core for me. I want to see Hawkman because he's cool. I do want to see this Adam Strange, but for my heart and soul of this team, it's those 4.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a team that, and I think what happens with a good team is you need its heart and soul, and then you gradually get to know anybody else on the team through them because you need that connecting point. And that's something that I really like about Lemire's writing. He does a really good job of getting you to the core of the characters. He did this with Animal Man, but then you got to know the rest of the family through hanging with Animal Man. We're going to get to know the rest of this team through hanging with these team members. And it's what makes this book really, really exciting, 2 issues in it. Well, are you in the... I should ask you this, because I'm making an assumption. I'm really digging this book. Where are you at?
Oh, I'm definitely digging this book. I'm 100% full on in on this. And it's, again, I like the concept. I like team dynamic concepts. I like a Justice League concept. And the fact that we're getting a Justice League that's not made up of the big three, that doesn't have any member of that on this team, I like that. And why this team came together. Again, I like the fact that it was Stargirl basically bringing this team together because Waller says we need another Justice League, and they put her in charge of basically recruiting and bringing the people in. John's first one in. She sent out the distress beacon. Green Arrow responded to it. Animal Man was right there when Adam Strange said, "Hey, help me out," and he's like, "I'm in." So you see these heroes coming together, and we got Hawkman, who didn't do too well by the end of the issue, but he was on the space station already. And I think we're going to see Vibe come through, on this team as well, because I really think Vibe is thrown out there, and he's going to be in this kind of universe, in this setup. So I think we're going to get these heroes all coming together for this purpose.
I don't think
the
we're going to see
5-year
Vibe.
Jump, I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Vibe. I'm not saying we're not going to see Vibe again. I don't think I'm necessarily going to see him on this team, but I may be wrong. So we'll find out.
The basis of my belief that Vibe on this team is solely from that final panel that when we talked about with the Forever Evil stuff, where they showed Hawkman flying through the sky and there was that energy, what looked like an energy blast hitting the planet. I was taking that was Vibe, but I could be wrong.
Well, the thing is, we've seen 2 issues of this series and we haven't seen any reference to any of that, but we saw Hawkman. Yeah. So I guess I don't see it that way, but maybe you're right. I don't know. I did buy something on eBay this week. Hawkman's arm was available on eBay. I figured I was going to shellac it and put it in my comic room, next to my Crisis poster.
If anybody can come back from that, Hawkman can. He's one of those guys I think could tough it out. And I'm wondering if they're going to do the Aquaman artificial arm, or if the nth metal or some outer space technology will be able to help him regrow it back.
Yeah, I don't know how he works with reincarnation, if that's been established or not. I don't remember seeing.
We haven't seen reincarnation. This to me is more of the alien space cop, but
right.
They did have some elements of. I'm trying to remember from the Savage Hawkman series. Mm-hmm. I think they had some elements of the reincarnation in it, but they're doing more of the alien space cop. So I don't know if we got that. I'm really thinking we're going to see a artificial arm. I think this Hawkman's going to have the Aquaman hand, the hook hat, or maybe the Horus gauntlet, or that whatever type of Thanagarian technology he's going to have. But there's going to be something there. I don't think it's going to be a grow back or a regeneration. I definitely don't think he's dead, even though he's hurting pretty bad.
I don't think he's dead either. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know if we're going to see some form of regenerative, because I do know the nth metal has a regenerative quality to it. I just don't know. I don't know. It's neat to speculate about this. This series is fun, and I'm speculating. I think one of the reasons why I'm against Vibe is not because I don't like Vibe or what they've done with him. I like that this team is not trying to be Justice League of America.
Right.
It's got roots connected to what happened because of it, but there's a new status quo and therefore a new team. I don't know. I'm so confident in Jeff Lemire that if he wants to put Vibe in there, he can put Vibe in there.
He's one of those creators that he can do it. Yeah, he can figure out how, if he's gonna. He's a guy I would trust to with the creation of this. So yeah. Now, question for you.
I want Sweet Tooth on the team. Oh, I'm sorry. What were we going to say?
I was going to ask about Alana, with her change in her origin as well.
Yeah.
Because hers, to me, was a more dramatic change in that she's human. she's not from the alien world that he goes to. She's not only human, she's one of his grad students, and they had a history on Earth, and it's so that's to me a more jarring change than the Adam Strange. How are you on that one?
I got to see where they go with it. That you're right. It's a big switch. I don't know where it's going to go. It's a lot of that after he gets beamed over. What happens with that relationship? I don't know. You're right. It's kind of a blank slate, and I'm interested in all that right now. I don't know how I feel. I got to be fair. I got to see how that goes. So far, I'm into the story, and I'm intrigued. I guess I've been pretty with the New 52, though. It's more that I want to see the characters, like the Wally West thing, the changes they made with him. I wasn't remotely upset with that. I quite like it. I'm glad to see Wally West and them doing some form of, acknowledgement of that character. So when they do it here with Alana and they're trying something a little new, cool. I'm into it. Let's see it. Let's see what they're going to do. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't feel that this should be beholden to the previous universe because it's not meant to be. But I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, no. We're going... It's the New 52. It's a recreation of the universe. Let's... creative teams should be given, authority and make some changes like this. It's... Again, it's funny because the person that's talking now is dramatically different than I was, when we first started this show, and even a couple years ago. I don't think I would be as open and embracive as change as I am, but I think it has been the New 52 that's really helped me see that this complete relaunch of the universe. It let me know, hey, you know what? The world's not going to end if they change some stuff, if they modernize it, if they tweak this, if they say, hey, let's go this route with this character. As long as I'm getting a cool story in the process, I'm happy.
What are your hopes with this series? Do you have any? I mean, when you think of this, is there anything that kind of stands out to you as like, I'd really hope it goes in this direction, or...
Well, first off, I want to run. I want a long run out of some of these books that I'm digging, that I'm like, it just gets the groove going. It just gets pumping and it stops. Like we talked about with Jonah Hex. I didn't know Hex was going away. I didn't know that Birds of Prey were going away. Those are two series that I was like, man, this is awesome. And next thing I know, it's done. I'm like, what? You're telling me it's done? That can't be over. That's the same thing I am with Justice League United. I want this to run. I want this to go. And the one thing I also definitely want is the continuing growth of Stargirl. That's something that I'm absolutely loving, and I'm confident that we're going to keep getting her character as a hero, as a person, all that, those neat, cool qualities that I've seen glimpses of, that they've given us these tastes of through the Forever Evil stuff. It's going to continue and it's going to grow, and that's for me the main focus for the series that I would like to see. I mentioned my core four, but she is the lead, story, the lead growth I want to see out of this.
Yeah, I hope, when you were talking about runs, I would love to see a long run of this as well. What I'd like to see is this title distinguish itself like it's doing right now. I feel like this is really nice because it is a very different title than the previous Justice League of America. Yet there's a connection there. It's not like we're randomly, the team was dispersed and there's no connection at all, and we were wondering what's left happening to all of the team. We've got 3 of the members of the previous team right here, right now. And that's something that I really am enjoying about this, while at the same time giving us something new. So, and if the roster changes when the 5-year jump comes, cool. I got no problem with that. Would I love to see Hawkman there? Yeah. Because I want to see somebody handle him, right?
Yeah.
Every time we've gotten glimpses of him being handled right in the New 52. And, the Mark Poulton, when he was teamed up with Rob Liefeld on Savage Hawkman, I thought it was like really starting to, get traction and be who I see it to be. I think Jeff Lemire can deliver cool Hawkman. I really do. He's doing it right now in this series. I want to see more. I want to see him get retribution.
I want to see round 2 between Lobo and Hawkman.
I do. Maybe this will give him a new headdress.
What? I like that. I like the armored kind of head, the armored headpiece look for him.
Yeah, and admittedly, it's my own brain freeze. I was liking it when Poulton was writing it. I guess it's funny you can change a whole bunch of stuff on Hawkman's costume, but that headdress is bothering me, and I don't know why. And it's been that way since the start of the New 52. So I get the people that kind of say I'm having issues with this issue or that. I'm like, okay, I understand, because I'm that way with Hawkman on it. It's funny that Batman can go to that uniquely different 0-year costume.
Right.
And I'm just fine with it. But the cowl's the same. I think, that's probably the key. The cowl's the same.
Yeah.
And I think I'd be the same if the cowl was the same for Hawkman. I don't know. It's and you're not wrong for feeling the way you are with the armored suit, because I know how you are. I think you prefer an armored look with certain types of characters, and I think Hawkman would fit that kind of building for you.
And I was just about to say that, because I do like the armored look on heroes. As a like with Superman, when there was the more armored costume, I really liked that. And I like that from beginning and through today. And I know you like the costume now, but when we first started, you're like, I don't know about that. But I do like that armored look, and especially when you're dealing with warriors. Now, it's funny because with me, you think back to the early days of Hawkman, I never liked the open chest. I always wanted him wearing an armor type of chest, but again, and it was just my same way I was with Wonder Woman. I wanted more armor looking, but it was the Spartacus series where I'm seeing the gladiator fighting, and those guys they did not go heavy armor, but they were more flexible. They were more mobile. And again, that fits his style. He doesn't have the body armor, but because of the training, because of the combat, he's not a sitting target. The armor would slow him down. The bulk would be detriment to his fighting style. But again, we do see with his arm getting cut off that there is some advantage to having some form of armor. So
the nth metal helps him, though. The nth metal does help him.
Yes.
So yeah. And maybe this will lead to an armor for him.
I really think we're going to get a mechanical arm, because I think that would look really cool on him. And an nth metal made mechanical arm type of, so he'd have like the gold arm, and it looked more like a gauntlet, because we saw kind of that look in some of the moments in Savage Hawkman where he went full armor and he really bulked up, and it was like some of those really cool scenes where he went hardcore and was just doing some serious damage to people.
They could melt down the headdress and make it into an arm. I'm just saying.
You that headdress, man. Let it go.
No. I love the character still, so I am letting it go, but the headdress needs to go. It's make it into a mug. I'm fine with that. It's a nice little goblet or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
With the headdress, is it because they're not actually feathery looking wings, or is it just
no? It's the design.
Okay.
It's too much. Let's go off of what you're saying. A sleeker design without all it's too ornate. Okay, here's my. I'll go with it. You're right. That's a great question, actually, and because you're making me think about what is my real issue. The feather issue isn't the problem. It's too clean. When I feel Hawkman should be grittier.
Okay.
I like when you your Spartacus reference. When you're talking about that, that's gritty. The feathered headdress, it doesn't have to be feathered, too, so I want to say that. I'm not saying that, but there's something about that. It doesn't look so clean, if you know what I mean. It looks more rustic. It looks more in your face. Whereas I'm fine with him with armor. If you mix that up a little bit and do that, your armor reference, I'm cool with that because I like the warrior side of him. Okay. I don't want to see it overdone. I don't want him to be in how they have Batman sometimes has those armored bat suits that are I love it when Batman does that. Don't get me wrong, because he's Batman, but I don't want to see Hawkman doing that. It kind of Hawkman is exactly what you're saying with Spartacus. He's got to be able to start flailing things around to people, but that's what it is with the headdress for me. It's not. I would be fine if it was a gold headdress that looked grittier. Not quite so ornate. It's there's too many cuts and facets in it and things like that, and it looks. Remember the movie Excalibur?
Yeah,
he looks like he should be part of the Knights of the Round Table.
Okay.
And I don't mean that. I'm a big fan of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I think all that's cool, but Hawkman's not a Knight of the Round Table.
Yeah.
He's your
He's a gladiator.
Yeah,
He's a gladiator.
You're honestly, your Spartacus reference is helping
the
me
Russell
see
Crowe movie, Gladiator. That helmet that he had on.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. Amen. Amen. That one is less ornate. It has facets and things like I was mentioning, but it's grittier. It's more, This is almost like you want to put him in Tiffany's. It really is. It's like that's the headdress. That's what gets me about it. That's the only thing that gets me about it. If you look at the outfit when you see the headdress and how it compares to other parts of the outfit, especially when it was first introduced, it's too clean and flashy. That's what bothers me. That's what it is. And you honestly helped me, because I've been trying to figure out for myself what is it that gets me, and your Spartacus reference clicked for me. I'm like saying, oh, wait a minute, Jim's nailing it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. That's what I want. I want Spartacus. That's really what I want.
I get you. I hear you. And I understand what you're saying. I personally like the look, but I'm not going to knock you on your feelings because it makes sense what you're saying. So,
well, there is no right or wrong.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's just...
there is a right or wrong. I'm right, you're wrong, but I'm not going to go into that long argument.
Let's discuss it over a mace. And I'll give you a nice ornate one, and I'll use a nice gritty one with spikes and stuff on it. We'll do a trial by combat. All kidding aside, though, I think the handling of the character is fantastic here.
Yes.
And I loved the sequence with Lobo. I like the new Lobo. I like the two Lobos. We talked about this previously on the show. It's cool. It's neat to see that being brought in. I'm glad they're exploring space. I'm glad they're exploring Canada. I'm going to be anxious to see, because the team's going to have missions. The theme of the book's supposed to be some on space, some on Earth, right?
Yes.
And I'm anxious to see where it goes with that. It's an interesting concept. And I think that separates them from the regular Justice League proper. So, and I'm hoping they do give them a nice separate run for a while. Not that I don't want to see them ever interacting with the Justice League, but, this book needs some time to breathe.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, when I talk about a run, I'm not just talking about, multiple issues. I'm talking about let this team grow. Let this team come together and build on it. When I say the 5-year jump, I'm assuming people are going to drop. In a way, I really don't want that, but I'm just assuming that's going to happen because you get that in a lot of superhero teams. But I'd rather see this team that's stuck together for these 5 years, and they've grown. And that's something I would like to see where pre-5-year jump, we have this team together. Post-5-year jump, we have the same people, but how are they different?
Yeah.
And that's the comparison I want to see. And I mentioned with Stargirl, I really want to see, the more mature Stargirl who is that solid leader, and that person who's, in the, right in the thick of things. She's not a reluctant leader. I want to see a strong character, a strong leader out of her, because I see just all those elements that would make a really great, just that, a field general. I see those qualities in her, and I'm so hoping that when we get that jump, we're gonna get that.
I wanted to inspire the team, like Superman.
Yeah. The reluctant leader, Superman. No. Yeah.
It's a good book, though. It really is a good book so far. It's funny how name value really does bring something to the table for me with Jeff Lemire. He's just been nailing it for me. He's just really a terrific writer. It's good stuff.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434. Or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. Feel free to call in about any topics relating to comics or pop culture. We love to hear what you have to say. Also want to shout out RagingBullets.com. It's really the news source on what's going on with the podcast, where the show is headed. I like to post episode updates when Jim and I kind of flesh things out, especially this time of year. This is the end of the school year for me, and my schedule gets very busy. Jim's schedule at work actually has been very busy for him as well. So it was great to be able to post this week, hey, this is the episode we're thinking of doing. This is when the release looks like. Those are always tentative. It's really a brainstorming site to give you info. It does feed to Twitter. It does feed to our show regular Facebook page. Speaking of Facebook, we are part of a wonderful Facebook group. The Raging Bullets Facebook group has grown into a Raging Bullets DCinfinite.com Facebook group. I'm glad to be sharing that with that wonderful community from DC Infinite, because it's become now a community that's grown beyond our podcast. DC Infinite brings their wonderful fan base over as well. It's great to have a discussion, not only just about DC, but comics in general, podcasts in general, blogs, anything that you guys want to talk about. That's what that group has become. It's a friendly, fun community of people that if you haven't had a chance to go check it out, go check out the community, because it's a wonderful group of people, and I want to thank everyone who's over there. We have a Google Plus page. We both have personal Facebook pages. It's always great to interact with all of you. So however you like to connect, please consider doing so. Sponsoring this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Want to remind everybody once again about the deal you can get on Unwritten. This is the Unwritten Tommy Taylor and the Ship That Sank Twice trade paperback. It's 50% off, only $7.49. I want to remind you that they are a digital partner, and if you do any of your digital shopping, be sure to link your accounts over at DCBService.com, and please do your shopping from DCBService.com. Not only do you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order, but you are helping our show sponsor. And it is helpful, actually, if you go to our website and click on the link and go over there. It lets them know that, hey, you're coming from our show, you've heard about it from the show, so it's always nice to do that if you have an opportunity. Try going through our own main page where we've got links to DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, if you haven't been reading on any of Unwritten, it's great to be able to get them at 45% off. Do those sales, Jim, I know for me, those sales will tend to be ones where I go, okay, this is a chance to get caught up in a book that I haven't been reading that I've been interested in. When they do a little bit more on the discount, that tends where I go, oh, you know what, I'll buy 2 or 3 trades because it's a little bit more of a discount. Does that pull you in that way?
Oh, definitely. I've gotten Sweet Tooth and Unwritten through trades, just because of how much you've raved about how wonderful they are. And I agree with you. They're absolutely fabulous stories, and I get them only in trade and through, in-stock trades and, when they'd run specials like that. So if I didn't already have the Unwritten, I would have been jumping on this extra, a little bit extra off. So I like to, you look and see what's out there and say, hey, people have talked about this. Let's give this a read.
Yeah, and I tend to, especially now with how expensive everything is, it's nice because I like to get, when I jump on that, I know I'm the type of person that I'm going to read the first trade, I'm going to want to read the second, I'm going to want to read the third. And if I can get those at a little bit more of an expandable discount, especially knowing that with InStockTrades.com, I'm going to get free shipping on orders of $50 or more, that's my time where I'm like, okay, I'm getting a much larger discount here. Let me grab these books now and kind of suck it up this month, and then, I'll pull back on my trade buying a little bit and just get a few of them at that discounted price. And it becomes my summer reading. I love reading a good trade outside in the summer. It's great to be outdoors, get the fresh air and all that, and enjoy reading it that way. That's where it's a little bit different than digital for me. I like the paper book. I like, that works better in the sunlight, and there's something about that. So that becomes hardcover and trade paperback time for me. Jim, our next episode, we're going to kind of do a combination of things. First of all, we're going to do that Superman Doom discussion we were going to have. Jim and I felt like that was going to be a little bit more expansive because of how big of an event that was. And with a new issue just coming out this week, we want to talk about the Doom storyline. So that's what we're going to discuss. We're also going to discuss the recently released Batman 31. Big events happening over in Zero Year, and I want to talk about, I'm anxious to talk about that one with you, Jim, just to get your thoughts on that story. And then also we are going to talk about Batman and Son, the DVD release, just kind of casually, our feelings about this Batman release and how it compared to our viewpoint of the whole Damian storyline when that was coming out, because they did a job of bringing that up to the screen. And do we have a preference, for the animated or the comics, and why? So I think it'd be kind of fun to have that discussion maybe from that lens, seeing as we're both big fans of Damian's appearances in the comic. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier